Hi, I'm Scoot, and welcome to Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. I was scheduled today to do another episode of The Truth Behind the Microphone, and I was going to talk about something that has been part of my career for a long time, but it just doesn't even seem significant right now. You know, I'm a radio talk show host in New Orleans, and I've worked in many cities across the country, and it's interesting how many people. And it's just amazing how people go out of their way to maybe find a reason to think you're gay. I was going to talk about that as part of the Truth Behind the Microphone series that I continue here on my YouTube channel, but that just doesn't seem to be appropriate today. Not after last night and not after what I'm watching this afternoon when it comes to the protests that have turned to riots, that have turned to destruction, that have turned to really a statement about race relations in America, a statement about equality. This is not as much a white and black issue as some would have you believe. It's a basic human right and wrong issue. You and I had the chance, the unfortunate opportunity, to watch a man, George Floyd, die on the neck of a handcuffed black suspect on the ground who was pleading for the police officer to give him a chance to breathe. And the police officer casually had his hand in his pocket while he was killing this man. We watched this police officer in Minneapolis murder this man. The police officer, Derek Chauvin, has been arrested. He's in custody, charged with third-degree murder, manslaughter. What about the other three? What about the three that were complicit? The three police officers that stood by and didn't stop one of their own from breaking the law. What's going to happen to them? Something needs to happen to them. You know, I'm a baby boomer. As a kid, I witnessed the civil rights movement. I never understood it. I didn't understand it as a kid. I don't understand it now. I don't understand why there isn't acceptance for everybody. And it's the year 2020. And we're still dealing with some of the same bullshit that we dealt with in the 60s and 70s. And that young generation back then that collectively stood for equality is now the establishment. And many of them are turning a blind eye to this. This was not a case of a suspect who was resisting arrest. This was not the case of a suspect who was giving police a hard time, threatening police, causing police to feel like their life was in danger. This was the case of a handcuffed suspect on the ground and a police officer who slowly robbed him of his life. I can't watch the video anymore. I have to turn away when it comes on because I'm reminded that I'm seeing the last breaths of this man and the callousness of that police officer, the callousness of the police officers around him, not stopping the cop from doing this, is impossible to understand. Impossible. If you can't be fair to people, don't be a police officer. It's that damn simple. And I call out, and we all should call out, the bad cops, because that's the best way we can stand up for the good cops. because the majority of men and women in the police department are doing their job the best they can. And when some police officer allows his anger, frustration, his prejudice, if that's what it's based on, whatever, when a police officer allows that to take over and somebody's injured or somebody is dead, we owe it to all of the good police officers to call out these people. And it happens too often. Colin Kaepernick proved to not be a credible person to stand up for what he stood up for, or to kneel down for what he knelt down for. But he was talking about this exact thing: injustice against black males. You know what white privilege is? White privilege is I can walk out on the street and not worry about things that a black man has to worry about. I live in downtown New Orleans. I have things that I have to worry about. But I don't have the same things to worry about that a black man has to worry about. That's white privilege. And that's not fair. I am comforted by the great number of white people, young whites, that are involved in these protests. Look, by the way, the rioting, destroying police cars, looting, none of that makes sense to me. People may come up with reasons why people do this. None of it's acceptable. None of it is an acceptable excuse. You don't loot, you don't destroy a business in the neighborhood that you're trying to stand up for. And these businesses have been hurt. And so here you have this riot in the name of a dead black male destroying black businesses. That doesn't make sense. In fact, a lot of the violence is coming from outside of the cities, outside of Minneapolis, outside of Los Angeles, outside of other cities. Outside antagonists are coming in and hijacking the moment. And many of the protests start out peaceful. I'm embarrassed to watch this. I'm embarrassed to watch this happen in my country in the year 2020. I'm embarrassed that this is still going on. And you should be embarrassed too. On my radio show on WWL in New Orleans, as I talk about this, you should have seen some of the texts that I was getting live on the air. Texts that were so blatantly racist that I'm surprised people were that bold to make those kind of statements in a text. I hope something comes from this. The situation with, I think his name was Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. There were circumstances there. There were stories, there were aspects of that story about him trying to grab the police officer's gun. And the FBI, Justice Department, under the Obama administration, investigated and found no reason to charge him. That was a different story. They're all not the same. There was a case in, I think it was South Carolina, where a police officer shot a black suspect who was running away from him. How can you claim your life is being threatened if the damn suspect is running away from you? Shot him in the back. That guy was charged. I think he's in prison. Every circumstance is not the same. It is behavior, not skin color, that leads some police officers to use lethal force. But in the case of George Floyd, there's no excuse for what happened. It was a murder. And this is not anti-white. This is pro-right. That police officer, Derek Chauvin, needs to face the consequences for murdering a man. Oh, sure, there are going to be those who are going to argue, well, yeah, he was committing a crime. We're talking about forgery. Show me where in this country that we have the death penalty for forgery. It doesn't exist. This was a murder. I hope that things work out okay. But I hope that something comes from this. There was Rodney King. And that's a whole different story. Don't want to get into that here. But there's a problem here. There obviously are police officers who are racist. They're prejudiced. And maybe not just against skin color. And our cities have to find a way to weed them out. There were 2 off-duty police officers here in New Orleans not long ago who beat up this Hispanic guy in a bar. And they, I don't know, they just didn't respect him. And I forgot exactly what happened, but it was no reason. They were charged. I'm not really sure what happened to them. I think one of them went to jail. I'm not sure. But one of the bad things for citizens in America is the thought that the police protect the police. Can't happen. And those cops that stood around and watched one of their own kill a man need to be held accountable. Make an example of those son of a bitches. Because we need to change things now. I'm getting some comments here, and I appreciate your comments. Again, I was supposed to do the truth behind the microphone and why people think I'm gay, and it's kind of funny, but I just wasn't in the mood to do it tonight. I'll do it on another episode here on my YouTube channel. But I just thought that this took precedent. This had to be talked about tonight. I hope this is the beginning of change. It needs to be. We can't keep letting this happen. We've got to demand that change be made, and I am comforted by the number of white people who are involved in this protest in the same way that I was comforted when I was a kid when I saw whites involved in the civil rights movement. This is not white versus black. This is right versus wrong. We have a chance to do the right thing. And by the way, the coronavirus pandemic, yeah, that's still going on. And a lot of people were wearing masks. Some weren't, many were. I appreciate you being with me here on the Scoot on the Air YouTube channel. We will we'll get better graphics, and we're going to develop this. And I hope you will help me build this. And you can start by subscribing. Just become a subscriber. It's free. Become a subscriber to Scoot on the Air YouTube, and you'll get an alert. You should get an alert every time we do something. I'm posting now Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday. And much of what I do is the truth behind the microphone. And I give you some insight into what goes on behind the scenes and behind the scenes in my life over a long and crazy career that does continue. You can join me on Facebook, Scoot on the Air, Instagram, Scoot on the Air, and I'm on WWL Radio, which you can most easily find on radio.com. Download the app radio.com, type in WWL, and you've got my show, and you've got our station wherever you've got your phone. Best way to listen to the show, stream the show. If you're in your car, we're on AM and FM as well, 870 AM, 105.3 FM. But radio.com is a great way to check in with the show. I'm on 1 to 4 in the afternoon. That's 1 to 4 Central Daylight Time, New Orleans time. I'm Scoot. Do what you can today and every day to push for change that should have taken place a long time ago.